Maker in residence at Berwick Academy, which is a independent K-12 school in southern Maine. It's in South Berwick, Maine. And I serve on the board of directors, and I'm a member of Port City Makerspace, which is in Portsmouth, New Hampshire. And I'm a little out of breath because I just had to run and get my video down there. And I'm wearing a tie. Anyway, so I've had the great experience of helping a few organizations over the last few years build out creative spaces like makerspaces. And most recently at World Maker Academy, I was able to help them build out their own creative space, which is a fabrication studio, design classroom, and a presentation space / brainstorming space. And we approached it from, in my experience, which is a slightly different perspective, which is to focus less on equipment and more on the people who are supporting the space and who are served by the space. And it seemed to be pretty successful, so I wanted to share that with you guys. So first, who am I? So as I said, my name is Jeff. And I got involved in makerspaces when I was looking for a creative space to participate in a few years ago. I joined up at Port City Makerspace when they were first getting started out, and I started teaching classes there in 3D modeling and 3D printing. And that was an opportunity to get to know a lot of teachers and librarians and other folks who were who are interested in learning how to start in a space like this. And that brought me into a lot of really interesting conversations. Some of those conversations were with folks at Berwick, which started a relationship, and me starting to work with them on some of these spaces, like helping them to build out a small makerspace in the middle school, which then grew into the program that I'm participating in now. So that was sort of how my relationship with the school started. But then just to give you a little bit more background on me, in addition to helping people start makerspaces, I'm a maker myself. I've been a tinkerer all my life, and it's really a passion for me. So just in case you're interested, the sort of stuff that I'm working on, that I'm interested in, I like to work with wood, metal, concrete, electronics, 3D modeling and 3D printing. These are some geometric bud bases that I made out of wood originally and then cast and molded concrete copies. Halloween's a big thing for me. This is something I did for a place I was working at the time. This is a land speeder from Star Wars. Likewise, a 12-foot long Batmobile that comes apart into pieces so we can move it up to the 3rd floor. Everybody wanted to know how we got a car into the 3rd floor. Lightsabers. Get the Jedi with a lightsaber, right? Lots and lots of lamps. I think when I run out of other ideas, I make lamps. Anyway, if you guys are interested in seeing more of my stuff, here's some of my contact information, and I'll put this up again at the end. I also have some business cards if you'd like to get a hold of me later. So anyway, before we talk about building a strong makerspace that really serves your community, we should probably talk a little bit about what makes a good makerspace. So in my opinion, makerspaces are unique like snowflakes, special snowflakes. But what I mean by that is that if you travel around and you visit creative spaces, the ones who are really succeeding, like in our case, we're a nonprofit, we have a mission statement, where we succeed by listening to our members and providing resources that serve the interests of our members. Rather than having the board sit in a room and say, we really want to spend $20,000 on a super fancy laser cutter, as awesome as that would be, if that's not something that our members are saying that they would really be well served by, that's not a good move for us. Which leads into my next point. Strong makerspaces serve their communities. Understanding who their members are, what their needs are, and giving back to those members is how you have an engaged group of members and a strong makerspace. And the last thing is, and this is an opinion that I've formed over a few years, but community is primary and equipment is secondary. Of course you need tools, and of course a lot of technologies like 3D printing and laser cutting and all of that sort of stuff are great enablers, and they're a great way to get kids' attention and get them thinking. But when you take a step back, in schools, if you're trying to teach things like fabrication skills and comfort working with your hands, problem solving, building confidence, all of these things can be taught with nothing more complicated than a hot glue gun and a pile of cardboard. It's important not to forget that. So if you're somebody who's interested in starting a creative space, don't feel held back by lack of budget. If you ask questions, if you ask people to participate, if you take any space that's available, and you focus on who can help you build it, and the students that you're going to serve, for example, you'll be successful. So where did we start at Berwick? Well, we had had some previous success building a small makerspace in the middle school, and the staff really stepped up and were excited about starting to do cross-discipline projects, project-based learning where kids have the opportunity to solve problems in a more authentic or real-world way. And so we were looking to build on that. The middle school makerspace was serving primarily the middle school, and we wanted to expand that and have something that was accessible to all grade levels. So we started researching what other schools had done. We had looked at our own sort of previous successes and what other makerspaces have done. So we're not operating in a vacuum here. So what we started doing is pulling together all of the people in our community who would want to participate and benefit from this space. So students, of course, if we're really going to serve the needs of the students at our school, we need to get their perspectives on it. They have a way of looking at things that's going to be different from how staff or faculty or certainly administrators or parents are going to look at it. So their needs and desires need to be represented. And that really came into view when we started visiting other schools and talking about where they had had success and where they had struggled. The students were invited along on some of those trips. And when they engaged with other students to see, for example, at this other school, what was difficult when that space opened, like what didn't feel good to them, they were able to get a student perspective that might not have come through if we were just talking to the administrators, for example. So they were a really important group to bring into this. Likewise with staff, a lot of our staff was really excited at the prospect, but some staff weren't comfortable working with some of the tools and the resources. Like in the digital classroom, we were going to have all this great new software, and in the fabrication studio, we had tools that some of them had never seen before. And so we wanted to get them excited about the prospect of using it rather than making it a requirement. We didn't want to mandate it, we wanted to incentivize it. So they needed to be part of the conversation so they knew where we were going and what the expectations were of them. Administration, of course, from the funding perspective and making sure that the space aligned with the long-term vision of the school. And the parents. The parents have to be comfortable with what's going on in the school, how we were doing safety checkups. Are they okay with that? Giving them the opportunity to opt kids in and out of the activities. So this led to some really good conversations, and it's easy to talk about this in the past and make it sound like we did everything right and everything is wonderful and all of that, but the truth was that some of these conversations were difficult. When we bring teachers in from all different departments, we have these great new resources, and some people are hesitant, some people are excited, some people aren't sure that the classes that they want to teach are going to have the space and the resources to do it. We have to do some prioritization and all of that sort of thing. So it's not like everything is smooth sailing. Let's talk about hopes and fears for a minute. So our greatest hope, of course, was that we were going to have this great new resource and we were going to encourage all of these new projects and we were going to have great things to show for it and the students were going to be excited. At Berwick, students have the opportunity to do what's called an innovation pursuit, which is a project that they choose for themselves on a topic that they want to explore that's outside of the normal curriculum. They're hooked up with a mentor and they work on it throughout the school year. In fact, one of my students that I mentored is over in the Young Makers area. He's showing off his autonomous kayak. We'll talk about that in the end if you guys are interested. But we wanted to see more of that going on in the school and not have to have students go outside of the school in order to get the resources they need to pursue these projects. Our greatest fear was that we would build this great space with all the best of intentions, but maybe students would be intimidated or the barriers to access would be low enough that anybody would feel comfortable coming in and starting to learn how to use the space, or that teachers would feel intimidated. So through all of these discussions about prioritization and lowering lowering barriers to entry, in the end we just decided we had to draw a line somewhere and say, look, we got to take a crack at this. We got to say what our first attempt is going to be and see how it goes, right? Because I think we all realize as a group that we're encouraging students to try things and take risks. And engage in a project that might have some failure. You might run into a problem and have to go back to the beginning and change something and come through it again. That's a normal part of problem solving. We're encouraging kids to do this. We need to follow that advice ourselves. So take a crack at it, not worry about what it looks like after the first week or the first 2 weeks or 3 weeks or a month, and not be afraid to look at our problems and then solve them as a group, because we're flexible, we're smart, we don't have to know how everything's going to play out. So we were going to live in the space. This became like a mantra for us. Not worry about it. Take the problems as they come. So how did it go? Well, we had some good stuff happen. Bringing everybody together, especially staff, the teachers, we had a lot of teachers who started using this space right from day one. We really hedged our bets pretty well. When you have a photography class that's going to use the design classroom with the computers that we have there, or we have an advanced math class that's going to do practical applications and actually building things to test physics principles and things like that, we know that you're not going to have an empty space with no kids in it. So that was a good step. And then the Innovation Pursuit program, we had over 60 students participate in that program last year, and a lot of those students came into the fabrication studio and the design classroom to work on those projects. So that was more students coming in. But then we had some sort of surprising ones. One of our groups of early adopters were the teachers teaching Latin, and they took it upon themselves to say, well, we could do a project where we're studying the culture from the perspective of architecture. We're going to build models of Pompeian houses and look at the choices that they made in the house layout and what that reflects about their culture. So we had Latin classes coming in all the time. We had some really excited staff who encouraged each other to engage in projects. They would come in groups after hours and just try out the equipment, making all kinds of stuff to get comfortable with it so that they would then take those skills and use them in their classes and encourage students with them. It also provided a whole lot of social media content, and the administration was excited about that because you can put that out on Twitter and YouTube and Instagram and get people outside of the school excited about it. You can show other students what's going on in the school so that they're inspired to do other projects, really increasing the communication about what's going on in the school and getting people excited about it. So what went wrong? Well, like I said before, we definitely had some problems, and it's not helping anybody to gloss over those. One of the biggest things was scheduling. So our class schedules are incredibly packed, and it's hard for students to find time to come in and work on independent projects. It also was kind of a problem for getting students checked out on tools. How do you use a laser cutter safely? If somebody wants to use this little CNC mill that we have, what do you need to know in order to not remove a finger? So scheduling that originally was kind of difficult. We were doing one person at a time checkouts on these tools all day long, and a lot of students didn't have the time to come in at all. So we thought about it, and we asked them to sort of delegate that problem, right? Students in free periods were there in groups, and if they talked among themselves and found groups of maybe 4 or 5 students who were free at the same time, they could come in as a group, we would check them all out, and then they would get excited about it and tell other students, and then they would do it. And so the scheduling problem was something that the students could actually help us solve. So what's year 2 going to look like? Well, last year was all about sort of the low-hanging fruit, right? The teachers that were excited, the students that were excited, projects that were easy to move into the space. We had good success with all of that. So what's next? Well, what about the reluctant students? What about the teachers who aren't sure how to incorporate these resources? We want to work on kind of reaching them and getting them excited. We want to be more efficient. When you get a whole class, like we had a class of 6th graders, there were like 16 of them coming in at a time, and we have 3 3D printers, which compared to a lot of schools is a lot of 3D printers, but that doesn't divide up very well. So for this year we looked at some more easier to use equipment with a reduced feature set, so there's less learning and more production that was more reliable. And rearranging the space so that we could kind of distribute people a little bit better. These are incremental changes, but they make a big difference. We want to see more ambitious projects. Not every kid builds an autonomous kayak, but we want to find kids who are willing to sort of kind of put themselves out there and try something really ambitious, even if it doesn't work out the first time. And when you have a lot of these projects going on in the space and other kids see it, they're really encouraged by that. Lastly, we want to keep building on what we did for the social media content before and build sort of persistent institutional knowledge that other teachers can come along after the teachers that are there now and use. Maybe we can publish that externally and let other schools see what we're doing and copy some of those projects. We want to give our administration plenty of material that they can use as recruitment tools and advertising media. And we want to build all of this stuff and make it available to the whole community because that serves all of us. So that's some of my experiences. I don't actually know what time it is. I don't know how much time I have, but does anybody have any questions? Does anybody have any experiences? Does anybody have any problems that they're struggling with right now that they want to ask about? If not, oh yeah.
Yeah, so I am launching a new school, middle school, and we want our makerspace to be a centerpiece. And just trying to decide which products we should start with. Do you have any suggestions?
Yeah. So my first suggestion. So the question was, when starting a new space like this, and you want to make it a centerpiece, what products should you think about? So the first piece of advice is don't worry about the products quite as much, and talk to your staff, your teachers, and your students, and figure out what they're interested in and what they're comfortable operating with, right? Because the people and the space, in my opinion, are more important than the equipment and the tools. But that being said, I would say pick things that are easy to learn and easy to ramp up on, and that your teachers are comfortable with, because they're going to be the ones that are inspiring the students if they're not already comfortable with it. So you may find that some teachers, maybe they don't know much about 3D printing yet, but they're excited to learn. That's a great area to focus. And what we've also found is that if you sort of start conservatively, especially if you can, like if you budgeted for this, and one of the things we see a lot in institutions is there's this pressure to spend all the money before you lose it, right? But that's like throwing a dart sometimes, right? If you can convince people to kind of moderate that a little bit, take a crack and buy a few things, show a little bit of success, and then come back around and build that up, I think you're going to be a lot more pleased in the long run that all of the stuff that you're getting is really utilized. So.